Okay. Okay, everybody. Good morning. And thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed, and your great organization, GUPAP and ECOCARE, also for inviting me to join this important meeting or this important session. And I hope the coming few minutes will be informative and will clarify the reality of the eco and water situation in the Gaza Strip, because it's too complicated to discuss all elements or components of the water problem in the Gaza Strip during a few minutes. As you know, so many, let me say, aspects or issues overlapped, interacted, and affect the water sector in the Gaza Strip negatively: socio-economic issues, political issues, the Israeli occupation, and other let me say, cumulated and integrated issues affect the water sector for the prolonged period of time. The water situation in the Gaza depends on many of aspects which severely, let me say, impacted because of the years of the siege and the closure of the borders of the Gaza Strip because of the occupation. In addition to the population growth rate, which is a very important issue, affect the water demand and the water consumption, as you know, the destruction of the environment depending on the resources consumption and the generation of pollution. So the coming few minutes will be, let me say, rich as I prepare myself, and I hope it will be clear enough. I'm Ahmed Hilles. I have a PhD in environmental science, and I was a postdoc researcher in Ghent University in Belgium. I am the head of the National Institute for Environment and Development. It's a private sector organization doing or implementing the projects relevant to the water and the environment in the Gaza Strip. And I was the director of Environmental Awareness Department in ECA for 16 years. I'm the lecturer now, or currently, in the Al-Azhar University in the Institute of Water and Environment, in many of courses relevant to the environment, to the water, environmental science, especially wastewater treatment and solid waste and others. We now contracted with so many international and local organizations to implement projects relevant to the water, to the emergency management, to the protection mainstreaming toward the vulnerable people during the, let me say, the harsh conditions and the hard time, especially in the Gaza Strip, in the rural area and the marginalized groups, how to deal with their needs toward the resources, which is scarce in the Gaza Strip and suffer a lot because of the situation that I said. In addition to that, and in my CV, there is more than 3,500 training hours implemented during the recent 20 years ago. We are dealing with or handling the problems of the environment in all sectors of the solid waste, wastewater, and seawater as ECOMAMA, ecological marine management, and the shoreline region, in addition to the agricultural problems toward the soil proprieties or degradation, in addition to the groundwater aquifer, and the relevant practical, let me say, solutions upon the household scale, in addition to the national scales. I'm a consultant with PWA, Palestinian Water Authority, and PMU, dealing with ESHA, Environmental and Social Impact Assessment of the wastewater treatment plants, and other projects relevant to the green economy that we implemented here in the Gaza Strip, and we ruled in many contracts related to these aspects, the sustainable development toward green economy and circular economy, in addition to the eco-performance or eco-friendly practices and practical performance of the institutions. Thank you so much again for inviting me for this important session. I would like to start my presentation with very important baseline, let me say, and this is the basic principle of our all problems The Gaza Strip is not more than 378 square kilometers. Now more than 2,200,000 people live in this small area. If we divided the two records or figures, we will find that about 6,000 people live in each square kilometer, which is considered as one of the most crowded areas in the world. And keeping those people to rely on their area to find up or to let me say to provide them or themselves by their needs according to the area, it's very, very difficult, as we will see during the coming slides. In addition to that, the origin of the problems of the Gaza Strip started since more than 73 years ago, because of the Israeli occupation, who enforced more than 200,000 people to leave their homes, cities, and travel to the Gaza Strip under the carnages and the killing of the people. Now all of these people is called as refugees, and they are now more than 1,200,000 in the Gaza Strip. So more than, or let me say about quarter of the population in the Gaza Strip is not a citizen or is not an origin residential here in Gaza. If they return back to their homes in the historic Palestine, the problems of the Gaza Strip will be solved directly, because all of these people relying on the local resources of the Gaza Strip, which is exploited, over destroyed because of the consumption which exceed the feeding and compensation by the nature. Those people is refugees, and they are now in the Gaza Strip because of the Israeli occupation, who's stolen their lands and their homes in Palestine, and this is which we all the time consider that the exacerbation of our problems is regarding of the occupation, which is now currently they are doing something else by closure of the border and keeping the siege of the Gaza since more than 15 years ago, hindering to strategic development of the Gaza problems, or let me say solving of the Gaza problems and challenges. And one of that problems, which is considered as one of the most important issue, is the water desalination, water let me say storage and pumping and supplies, in addition to the wastewater treatment and dealing with the pollution as all. This is the first, let me say, milestone we have to highlight it, to know what is the origin of the problem before diving deeply in the discussion of the results of these problems. Water crisis in the Gaza Strip is very complicated now because of the demand which exceeds the available resources. Nowadays, the Gaza Strip consume or need more than 201 million cubic, 210 million cubic meters per year, and the available resources, the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip relying completely or semi-completely on the rainwater. More than 95% of the water resources in the Gaza Strip from the groundwater aquifer, which feeded by the rainwater annually, and the rainwater or the precipitation not exceed than 100 to 10 million cubic meter per year, but not all of this water percolated or feeding the groundwater because of the evaporation and the runoff or the drainage of this water to the sea by slope or the gravity, in addition to the feeding the wastewater, which damaged the networks of the wastewater collection system is damaged, and then the rainwater by the streets and the ways go inside these wastewater networks, complicated the wastewater treatment sector, and loses of these fresh water because of the bad infrastructure, which is directly targeted by wars in the recent years launched against the Gaza Strip or perpetrated directly and systematically against the networks or the infrastructure of the Gaza Strip by the Israeli occupation also. The remaining part of this water came from desalination plants which suffer a lot because of the electricity outage and deficiency, in addition to the chemicals, because we are under siege and the complicated siege closed, very tightened for everything go inside Gaza because of the Israeli occupation. So the chemicals needed for the desalination, like de-escalation and the disinfectants and other very important chemicals needed to the desalination process, which let me say take a lot of time and a lot of documents signed and a lot of cooperation with the international organizations to enforce the Israeli government to give the permission for those staffs to go inside Gaza Strip, which complicated also our problems. As we saw during the recent period of time, many of strategic projects in the Gaza Strip prevented to be implemented because of the policies of the Israeli on the borders of the Gaza Strip, the dual-use concepts and the security concerns, as they said, but it's let me say unlogic and unacceptable, and there is no justice for their story regarding this items. The other part of this water came from the Makarot. It's an Israeli company. As a Palestinian, we bought this water yearly. This is the figure, show us the amount of water resources, which is very smaller than what we need yearly. The gap in the water budget yearly become now more than 100 to 130 million cubic meter per year, which enforce the groundwater level become down and down, the water depression, which now become lower than the main sea level, more than 20 meters, which affect the groundwater quality because of the seawater intrusion, as we are close to the seawater, to the shoreline, and our aquifer consists of calcareous rocks, and the porosity and the permeability of this type of sedimentary rocks is very high. So if we close as we will to the seawater intruded our groundwater aquifer directly, which now exceed more than 4 kilometers along of the Gaza Strip to the middle of the cities, and increase the salinity of the groundwater very high, exceed the international and local standards, 1,000, or let me say tens folds, as we saw during the recent researches that we implemented. The groundwater reservoir is fed with rainwater, as we said, and then this water consumed, over exploited, over pumped, okay, and then the water now, available water in the Gaza is less than what we need, where the quantity of rainwater is lost because of, as I said, the problems related to the networks and the evaporation, because we are now in the Gaza Strip as like a concrete block, hindering to the water to be inserted on the groundwater. This hindering make more than 30 to 40% of the rainwater to be loses or lost. This amount of water go away from our, let me say, use. The seawater, okay, intrusion, as I said, now make our groundwater unsafe to be drank. More than 10,000 parts per million of chloride. It's one of the example of the salts that we found in our water, which is not now, the water is not safe to be drank, according to that problem of the water, now more than 110 small-scale brackish water desalination plants scattered in the Gaza Strip, which are not, let me say, monitored well and followed up well because of the problems related to the governmental organizations or the relevant governmental ministry. They don't have what they need to do their work according to the siege or the closure of the border, as we said. Regarding the surface water in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli occupation built up a number of dams on the main valleys that deliver the surface water from the northern part of Palestine and the Negev basin, which consists of 3,400 square kilometers as catchment area of the rainwater to the Gaza Strip. More than 25 million cubic meters per year are collected and redirected to be reused in the Israeli settlements around the Gaza Strip. Currently, Wadi Gaza and Valley of Beit Hanun and As-Salqa also have been dried from clean and natural rainwater since years ago, all the time of the year. Nowadays, the valleys receive wastewater from local populations by gravity. As you see, Wadi Gaza, which consists of the main surface water of the Gaza Strip, nowadays, because of the Israeli occupation, the water, the fresh water came from the northern part of Palestine, hindered to go inside this strip because of the dams that built up by the Israeli, and this is Beit Hanun, and as you see this critical figure, how the Israeli occupation deal with us or deal with our rights in water. Nowadays in the Gaza Strip, not more than 60 to 70 liters of water per capita per day provided for the people. This is the unofficial record, but currently and on the ground and in the real image, I can let me say ensure that there is people in the Gaza Strip not receive more than 30 to 35 liters per capita per day. But in comparing to the Israeli occupation, they provided their people more than 3 to 40 to 400 liters per capita per day as official records. Water crisis in Gaza on households level is very, very complicated also. What we said is national, and the demand of the water and the requirements and the resources depending on the national or the, let me say, large scale, but according to the level of the household, there is another problems relevant to the electricity available for the people to pump the water from networks and the municipal networks to their storage, small storage, household storage. Many times per week or per month, the water is not compliant with the electricity provided for the people. Because of the outage of the electricity and the deficiency, it's not more than 6 hours, and currently in winter, it's not more than 4 hours per day. What is the, let me say, the situation of the families who know or who are looking for this water to pump or to deal with water from the networks by this type of electricity availability. While the water, and this is a problem which affects the amount of water to be provided for the people in their house. If it less than what the WHO standards recommended, it will affect the health practices of the people. As you know, the water need for the hygienic practices, cleaning their bodies, hands, clothes, and cooking in addition to the cleaning of their homes. So if the water become lower than what the international standards recommend, their life or their health will be affected adversely, as we saw during recent documents or reports and studies that we implemented with so many international and local organizations. We checked up the health status of the families depending on the water availability. And as you know, there is 5 items really have to be taken into consideration to deal with water in the villages or the cities, regarding availability, affordability, accessibility, and the quality and the quantity. And all of these criteria of the water in the Gaza Strip are destroyed completely because of what we said. Returning to the electricity, as I said, the problems of providing the population with municipal water necessary for daily household activities in the Gaza Strip are exacerbated by the absence of the electricity, particularly rural areas or outskirts of the cities have become overcrowded, and the demand for water increased by time. Incompatibility, as I said, of water arrives at the time of the electricity arrival to the families, deprive them of the opportunity to operate the pumps necessary to raise water to the tanks located on the roofs of their homes, which deprives these residents of municipal water for periods. This problem pushed them to buy the water from the truckers or the street, let me say, vendors or vouchers. And this problem, let me say, make those people exposure to health problems because of that water is not under control and not safe enough or in guarantee to be safe for their children, the vulnerable people, and especially the children. The municipal water reaches the owners of the houses near the municipal well or the ground houses in a larger amount and the longer period than others in remote areas or residents of the upper floors, especially in the tall buildings and towers. The Water Sector Regulatory Councils follows and monitors water quality indicator, but they have very complicated problems toward water quality monitoring and check-up because of the apparatus, the needed equipments, in addition to the chemicals needed for the analysis of the water. Many times in the Gaza Strip, the tests and the check-up of water quality were hindered or stopped because of the needs in the laboratory, let me say, scale, so the water become not or uncontrolled or unmonitored well because of these problems. As you see the photos, it's some of as a sample of water problems in the Gaza Strip. Reports and studies received from the Water Authority and the Coastal Municipal Water Authority showed that about 97% of the aquifer's water is unfit to be drank, unsafe, because of the parameters of the water. One of that parameters, or more than one parameter, destroyed: chemical, physical, biological, because of many of resources of the pollution that will be discussed well during the coming slides. As a result of the leakage of partially treated or untreated sewage water into aquifer, with an average of 12 million meters or cubic meters per year. Thus, an estimation of 35 million cubic meters of sewage now flows directly into the sea every year, which returns even partially to the aquifer through direct sewage or intrusion. In addition to the health status of the shoreline region, which considered as the main recreational area for the poor people. As you know, there is no bill or let me say taxes on the shore to be visited by the poor people during the summer, the hot season, with no electricity in their homes. So if you discharge all of this amount of wastewater, you can imagine what the quality of this seawater, which will be used by the people, especially the vulnerable with immunity, a low immunity system. And we find every year dozens of, let me say, cases gastrointestinal problems relevant to the visiting of this shoreline region, which contaminated by direct discharge of wastewater daily and continuous, which is partially treated or untreated in so many times. The water of aquifer is saline, as we said, because of seawater intrusion, and like what let me say illustrated well in this map, which is a recent map, 2018, you can see the concentration of chloride which not allowed to exceed the 250 to 400 ppm according to the international and local standards, the WHO standards, to be safe to be drank, to be safe. But if you see the map, the rich and the semi-rich, in addition to the origin, let me say the orange areas, all of that is not safe to be drank, as groundwater aquifer tests implemented by the PWA. And the regression or the trend of the chloride concentration since 1992 till to now, as you see, it's grow up and go above the WHO standards. In addition to that, the nitrate. As you know, the nitrate is a very important parameter, could be or should be followed all the time regarding the chemical quality of the water, which relevant to the methemoglobinemia, because the nitrate will be the reduction of nitrate in the stomach of the children to be nitrite, which very, let me say, willing to combine with the hemoglobin of the children to make them deoxified, which considered as one of the most problems the children drinking water with high level of nitrate concentration exceed 50 milligram per liter, 50 ppm, which will affect these children by the phenomenon called blue baby, and will affect their mental, let me say, grow up and make them diving in problems relevant to the mental retardation and other problems of the children. It was found that more than 83 of the samples examined from the network don't meet the Palestinian specifications or standards. In addition to the problems, as you see, the regression of the nitrate since 1986 till to 2016, the grow up of these curves relevant to the over-bombing of the groundwater aquifer and the excessive use of, let me say, agricultural chemicals, in addition to the damages of the networks of the wastewater collection system during the recent wars that I said before. The Israeli occupation targeted our infrastructure directly and systematically, as we saw, and we launched or published in NIED, in the National Institute for Environment and Development, a report regarding the EIA of the Gaza Strip after the recent war to 2021, its environmental impact assessment of the world, and we found many of let me say, complicated, sophisticated and catastrophic results regarding what the Israeli occupation did in our environment. And the water sector is one of the most fragile and targeted area. The results also showed that 38% of the samples taken from source don't comply with the standards of WHO regarding total coliform, which is considered as one of the most important pathogenic, let me say, and diseases causes problems related to the water quality. The total coliform, as you know, in addition to the fecal coliform, which came from the feces, it means that there is a crushing or damages of the wastewater, because of more than 30% of the Gaza Strip are connected to the municipal wastewater collection systems. So they used all the days, all the time, something like cesspools or cesspits. It's absorption holes in the ground to drainage their wastewater. Daily routine production or generation of wastewater will be drained by or via this type of collection system, which connected directly to the groundwater aquifer, the main source of water for the Gaza, as we described. In addition to that, I'm sorry.
Sorry for interruption, Dr. Ahmed. First of all, thank you for this valuable information. But within 5 minutes, you will start having questions from Russell and other participants.
Okay, I'll finalize. Okay, I am going quickly. One of the most problems that we face in Gaza Strip, reusing of the leachate, which is produced from the municipal solid waste. As you know, the poor countries' solid waste consists of the majority as organic material. Each ton produces more than 200 to 250 liters of some toxic liquid substances. It's called leachate. Somebody here in Gaza reused this leachate to fertile or as fertilizing minerals or fertilizing material for their agricultural activities, which make their let me say products more toxic because of uptake that happened by the plant of the toxic material, heavy metals and other organic materials from the soil. This is lakes or the lagoons of this leachate produced from the dumping site that we see in the photo. As we said, the amount of or the percentage of the connected to the people to the municipal wastewater collection system, and this is the results of drainage of this wastewater to the groundwater aquifer. Now wells, many of wells in the Gaza Strip become very saline, polluted, contaminated. The people now think about the desalination of seawater, but it needs more electricity, which cannot be let me say provided for the domestic. In addition to the desalination plants, because of the Israeli equipment, all of these the desalination plants rely completely on the ground, on the fuel, fossil fuel, and the traditional electricity, which outage because of the situation. Some of desalination plants in the Gaza Strip, and they are trying to solve or to mitigate the results of the deficiency of water. In agricultural, we found because of the narrowing or the Israeli occupation built up as buffer zone surrounding of the Gaza Strip at more than 500 meters prevented to be cultivated by the Palestinian people, which is unfortunately the most fertile areas to be cultivated. But because of the security of the Israeli occupation, they shooted everybody become close to the border, more than 500 as restricted access area or access restricted areas. This pushed up the farmers to use excessive use of chemicals to increase the productivity of their lands, which means that the most chemicals will be washed up by the rainwater and by let me say irrigation to take all of these chemicals percolated in the groundwater aquifer and make them very, let me say, polluted. The bottled water also have a problems. The rainwater harvesting in the Gaza Strip suffer a lot because of the infrastructure which need more and more strategic projects to rebuild the cities again according to effective and efficient collection system for this rainwater. In addition to that, many of wastewater treatment plants in the Gaza Strip nowadays are building up because of the Israeli occupation. Many of challenges, obstacles and constraints facing the organizations working in the sector. I'm not going to dive deeply in this wastewater treatment, or let me say wastewater treatment plants, because many of the challenges, because of the political and socio-economic, let me say, challenges that we face in Gaza. Some properties and some information about these wastewater, the efficiency and let me say the capacity of these wastewater in the Gaza Strip. Nowadays, we are going to cultivate more than 15,000 dunams by recovered wastewater treated by a new wastewater treatment plant. This project is promising for the Gaza Strip, but if we given the opportunity and the full, let me say, area to work well and suitably, it will be, let me say, more effective. I'm sorry if I get details and tall, and thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. The floor is now open for questions and discussions. Yes, Russell?
Thank you very much. Ahmed, that was very troubling, really, to see the actuality of the situation. I think you can probably not share your screen any longer. I guess from my perspective, it comes down to your situation and how we might be able to partner in trying to alleviate those issues, and there's significant issues, obviously, particularly with the large amounts of raw sewage going into the sea, and of course the very significant issues regarding the aquifers. Thank you. So I think from our perspective, it's more about what are your thoughts on how we might best participate, and considering other alternative technological solutions that may be researched. I'd be interested in what your thoughts are on that, please.
Okay. Our problem, let me say, in water sector in Gaza Strip divided into big or main pillars. The first one is the quality, and the second one is the quantity. We are facing now problems regarding the quantity of water available for the people. In addition to that, the quality of this water, because you can find the water just for the agricultural purposes, but it's not safe to be drank. And the production of wastewater should be handled well. And regarding the solutions of those problems, we are thinking all the time by two items. The first one is the soft, and the second one is the most important, is the hard. The hard, according to the technical level, how we can build up our own facilities dealing with these problems, desalination plants, because we are close to some of the most important renewable source of water, continuous and let me say sustainable resource is the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. So if we build up our own projects the sustainable projects can be fed by a continuous source of power supply like electricity. In addition to that, the chemicals, the needed experiences and the expertise that we need to launch, this is the main source. In addition to that, the wastewater treatment plants, the wastewater and reusing. We are now trying to handle or to deal with this problem, because we would like to kick the bird by two birds by one stone. Environmental problems regarding the wastewater. In addition to that, the resources of this water. Reusing of this water is very important for all of us. Removing the wastes, injection or infiltration of this wastewater by lagoons to the groundwater aquifer, then after 2 or 3 kilometers we can pump this water again to be used for cultivation. Many of let me say solutions can be implemented in the Gaza Strip, but if we solve the main problems, as I said all the time, is the Israeli occupation. If we given our right to deal with our problems freely, it will become better and better and easily.
Could I ask another question, please?
Okay.
Certainly some of the issues that you've highlighted, I guess not with the population sizes that you're talking about, are relevant to some of the low-lying islands that I'm dealing with in the Pacific. Seawater encroachment on the groundwater, contamination from raw sewage in the groundwater, lack of access to storage facilities for rainwater, and so on. And of course, very similar issues in regards to the impacts on the population of people, total coliform counts, high nutrient levels, bacterial contamination of the groundwater, and so on. Now, in part, we've been attempting to support the needs of the local communities on those islands using smaller water filtration systems with UV irradiators to eliminate the bacterial and viral contaminants with coarse and fine filters, for bacterial contaminants.
Of course.
Now, we've continued to evolve that program, and although unfortunately Ricardo's not with us this evening or this morning, as far as you're concerned, but the sustainability of those particular systems required a different approach to the filter media. Initially we were using commercial filters, but for those systems to be sustainable for remote impoverished communities, the media needed to become something that was made of materials that could be locally accessed. So we have a project on at the moment where we're looking at charcoal filters, sand filters, and other types of filtration, calcium carbonate, for example, from crushed mussel shells, etc., and using solar as the UV irradiator rather than a proper UV irradiator. Now, that's a very small scale for schools of around about 600 or up to 1,000. But what are your thoughts about that approach? Some sort of individual filtration systems for communities.
Thank you so much. It's like a moving snowball, and we are working together with all our friends since years ago in 2 levels. The national level, which implemented by the governmental, let me say, and the international community, but regarding the decision making and the strategic plans. But on the ground, we have something like first aid. We can mitigate the problems toward the community, and we are doing that all the time. From the beginning of the occupation till to now, we are dealing with the problems relevant to the people on the ground, how we can mitigate, how we can decrease the suffer, how we can solve their problems on the ground practically, and not going to dive deeply to the strategic plans, which cannot be happened by one kick or by one hit. So the treatment of grey wastewater treatment, grey wastewater up on the household scale. We implemented many of projects on the rural area, how to reuse your grey wastewater, not going diving or not going to treat your black from the toilet, but the grey. By using a small, simple system or units, you can reuse all of these generated wastewater daily in agricultural activities. In addition to that, how you can harvest the rainwater according to the household scale to maximize or to increase your water resources during summer. You can, as I mentioned in my presentation, we have a half meter of water yearly in the Gaza Strip. So if we collect of this half meter, comparing to the area that you use, if you use glass houses, greenhouse gases, greenhouse agricultural, let me say, system, or floors by a big amount of meters, you can collect a significant amount of water to be reused in agriculture. In addition to that, how to rationalize your consumption of water. The awareness campaigns that we launch every time to learn and to give the people three big goals or objectives that we are working on during all of the recent period of time. The first one is the information, the what, when, where, why, the importance of the water and the quality of the water, and how to deal with this water quality well, how to provide your people, how to check up, how to disinfect your water because of the problems relevant to the microbes or germs. In addition to that, how to rebuild up your network according to your household, the storage, the networks, the type of pipes, and so on and so on. In addition to that, the second one, how. The second goal, we are working on how you can deal with water, let me say, safe water chain, depending on your scale as household and the community. And all of our emergency plans and contingency plans that we built up with those people in the rural areas, in addition to the local non-governmental organizations, the hypothesis that we, let me say, provided for those people to deal with, like a first aid, how to deal, how to build up your preparedness, and the second one, response, and the third one, recovery. The third one, we are trying all the time to build up their beliefs regarding the let me say the weather and let me say the rationalized consumption and dealing with water sector in their home or household level.
So Dr. Ahmed Abu Shaban raised his hand, and it seems like he has a question. So yes.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ahmed for the very informative presentation, briefing on water crisis and associated environmental crisis in Gaza. Reflecting actually the miserable situation in Gaza, I may just also mention, additional to what Dr. Ahmed mentioned, that we have several problems related to, first of all, institutional capacities at national level. And it is actually correlated with the weak capacities of the public sector in general. I mean, one of the, Dr. Ahmed explained, like there are actually huge efforts at different scales to support water sector and environmental challenges at national level, like establishment of facilities for water treatment that costed actually a lot for, the international community, and even the desalination unit. Even when we talk about environment, the solid waste solid waste landfills, and all those huge projects going down at community level and going down at household level, many projects, many initiatives were there. But the first problem that we do not have this, let's say, capacity for national ownership of whatever is achieved. Maybe one very good example of this, when we talk about wastewater treatment plant, for example, in Palestine, in Gaza. This was established, and the cost was very high. I think it was hundreds of millions of US dollars. But when they finished the establishment and they started to operate, they wanted to operate the treatment plant, they discovered that the national public service provider was not able to operate because they do not have the capacity, they don't have the financial means to operate. And why? Because they cannot collect the fees from the people. Partially because of the poverty and partially because of the people awareness and culture that all public services should be provided for free. Then the donor was actually feel obligated to provide money to operate the wastewater treatment plant. Of course, operation cost can be covered for 1 year, 2 years, but what will happen after that? If the community does not bear the cost of the treatment, all what we are doing will fail.